Hey, Truck Roy here. We're on the Riding Shotgun Show, and we have a guest on that I've been wanting to get back on for a long time. And to my listeners out there, I know it's been a while since I put a show up. I've fallen behind. I've had some good things happening in my own personal life that have really kept me very busy, and then we had the upgrades on Stormfront, and now I think everything's getting back on routine. But I'm very, very excited to have my first show coming back after a little break with Horace from the Fall of the White Rabbit shows. And if you look at my signature on my post on Stormfront, you'll see my link to the Horace the White Rabbit shows. It's the best show out there, in my opinion, to my taste on white nationalism, because it entertains me and it educates me at the same time. Horace, good to have you back on, man.
It's good to be back on the Chuck Roy Show.
Yeah, now, I listened to your show, and at first, I know you're a student of Bob Whitaker, so I'm not surprised to hear some mantra stuff in there, but then, bam, I mean, it's like a whole universe that you've created out there. You got interesting characters, you got all kinds of terminology. It hooked me right in, and I think it's appealing to an awful lot of other folks out there right now. Let's go over a little bit of the terminology you have on this show. You start off, you go by the name of Horus. Now, who's Horus?
Horus the Avenger is me, of course.
Of course.
It comes out of ancient Egyptian mythology, basically. Horus the Avenger, of course, comes out and puts down Set.
Okay.
Set is, of course, the red hippopotamus.
Set.
And it's chaos.
Okay, yeah, I've heard Set is referred to as like Satan or the devil or something like that.
There you go. It comes out of ancient Egyptian mythology. You can look up Horus the Avenger. He's the son of Osiris. It's just I came up with something different, because if you want to do something different, well, you better start doing something different.
Yeah.
We were trying to do something different to get out unique concepts and ideals to put these little white rabbits on a consistent message everywhere. And so you got to do something totally unique and something they've never heard before. And
well,
the objective.
If that was your calculated effect, it was very bright, because for years I've known about Bob Whitaker. I've read some of his mantra, some of his thinking that he comes up with, and it is very simple. But it's tough for me to get my mind around at first. It requires you to think in a different way. After years of reading Bob Whitaker's stuff, and I knew it was dead simple, and I just couldn't understand why I couldn't get my mind around it. And I finally realized that Bob isn't trying to tell me what to think. He's trying to give me a new way to think. And I think that your show is a great entryway into that sort of thinking, because it already gets people a little bit out of their natural element. It appeals to their imagination and takes them into this world you've created with Horus. And then what are some of the other characters we have on here? It's called the White Rabbit Show. Who are the White Rabbits?
It's called Follow the White Rabbit. The indigenous white rabbits of Europe are, of course, white folks. They're white folks everywhere. They're the Indo-European tribes spread out across the top of the planet.
Right. White rabbits all over the top of the planet. And I hear you say we have the whole top of the planet and no home, no rabbit hole.
Yeah, we don't really have a home. No one's claimed us. We have all this land. We literally do have the whole top of the planet. We have from Russia to North America. We have Canada. We have all of Europe. We have all these weapons, all this outrageous technology, but we don't have a home.
Right. Yeah, and of course that's
no one wants us.
Right, and of course that's what white nationalism is about, is trying to find a home for white people, because Africans have their own nations, Asians have their own nations, and as Bob Whitaker says, white nations for everyone. It seems like nobody has a problem giving us the old slow genocide treatment by flooding our nations with tons of non-Americans or non-British or whatever. And that is genocide, of course, and we're less than 10% of the world population. It doesn't really take that much immigration before we're in deep trouble. And that's the problem that we're all trying to address, but you address it in a different way. I mean, I get a feeling from your show, a tone from your show that is more positive, and it's forward-thinking, it's unique, you're seeing hope. I see doom and gloom when I read Stormfront posts or hear about other people talking about the precarious situation that white rabbits are in. But you see a lot of hope out there. You see undercover lovers. What's an undercover lover?
That's someone that works for us that you don't know works for us yet.
Okay.
That's simply in practical politics. That's simply a steely-eyed lone wolfer, but they're not doing anything. They're not breaking any laws. You know, they're a lone wolfer type rabbit, but they're working for us, but you don't know they're working for us.
Right, and these might be people in government or in high up in business, that sort of thing.
They're all over the place, right?
Right, right. And you know, I've last time I had Horace on my show, you know, I told my listeners, you know, he gets into some really out there stuff that I don't quite follow him all the way on, but I still listen to him. Obviously, it's my favorite show out there. And if you have any interest in some of the interesting stuff you've been seeing on the History Channel, or you've heard other people allude to in terms of some of the unknowns out there, some of the things that can't quite be explained. You know, Horace. You know, I've talked to you, Horace, as an individual, not just on your show, and you are a guy who has some pretty good skills at analyzing the world around you. And anybody who's listened to your show and listened to your take on the Russia situation, or listened to your take on upcoming world events and on how politics and war is developing around the world, will understand that you know what you're talking about. And if you're seeing stuff on the History Channel and you're seeing some of the unexplained things out there, and you don't know why some of these big players are making the moves that they're playing, your show has some stuff that can enlighten and entertain the people on that.
Well, everything changes day by day, but the general trend right now, like, is for war with Iran. It's been a trend in place a long time. When I first mentioned it on the show, I got a couple emails. This was back in May or June or whatever, saying no way that would happen. Now, of course, those guys are emailing me saying, yeah, it looks like it's obvious.
Right.
Several different players that have historically went against the White Rabbits are now in a lot of trouble. And we have this problem. We have this very unique problem. Is we have rabbits that look like us that have no loyalty to us, and they have a lot of power over us. I call them pink rabbits.
Pink rabbits.
There's no really way to explain them. You know, in America, we have the so-called conservatives. They look like us. They have no loyalty to us. They have a tremendous amount of power over us. The Mike Huckabees. And we've got to isolate those. You isolate them with a consistent message. You isolate them with a mantra. You isolate them with our talking points. But you have to isolate the self-hating white baby boomers. They're all pink rabbits. You got to isolate them, move them out of the way.
And by self-hating white baby boomers, you know, you're talking about folks that are white, but they're apologizing for their race. They're wanting to help out, you know, the same people who are raping and beating and robbing them, and so on and so forth, right?
Well, yes, but they're relatively easy to move out of the way with a consistent message. The real problem we have are the ones like in the Republican Party in power, like the John McCains, the Mike Huckabees. That's a great example for Americans. They are extremely dangerous.
Right. Now, I want to talk about John McCain just for a second here, because there's a idea that you get across in one of your more recent shows that I really want to get to in a minute. But I was just talking to a guest who was over at my house last night. And he's a white nationalist, a really good you know, guy who's you know, successful in the community and everything. And I was talking to him about your show. Actually, I was talking about some of the points you make on there. And you have a little analogy, as you have so many great metaphors and analogies for some of these problems and issues out there. Tell me who the Lone Ranger and Tonto is. Tell me about Lone Ranger and Tonto.
Well, Lone Ranger has to have his Tonto. These self-hating white baby boomers, they have to have their little Tontos. They have to have their little brown immigrants. They have to have their little brown people to follow them. You know, just like Lone Ranger has to have Tonto. Tonto's supposed to follow him. Tonto's supposed to take his orders. The problem with Tonto, as soon as Tonto has enough numbers, Tonto elects a Tonto.
Right. Now, and for the listeners out there, because I know there's a lot of young listeners who have never even seen Lone Ranger or heard of Tonto, and I'm on the border there. I mean, I know who you're talking about, although I've never seen the show. So what we're talking about here, the Lone Ranger was an old Western show where he was like he was a ranger, and then he had his little Indian buddy Tonto, who was like his helper, right?
There you go. He was a white cowboy, an all-American cowboy in war. You know, he was like a superhero cowboy, but he had to have his little Indian helper, and his helper was supposed to just do that, take orders.
Right, and